Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, let's talk some boxing. So we're looking at Floyd Mayweather TBE, but this time we're going to look at how many people, as ranked by the Ring magazine, were top 10 opponents of Floyd Mayweather. Now, first of all, you need to have some confidence in the Ring magazine's ratings. Since we're looking at it via division, we're not really looking at it in terms of pound for pound. Let's, for instance, look at the heavyweight division and their rankings. If you agree with the rankings that you see, then we can really trust the Ring. So let's look at the heavyweight division, for example. The lineal champion is Tyson Fury. That's because he beat Vladimir Klitschko. The number one heavyweight in the world at present, according to the rankings, is Vladimir Klitschko. That's the number one heavyweight contender to the lineal champion. Number 2, Deontay Wilder. Number 3, Kubrat Pulev. Number 4, Luis Ortiz. Number 5, the IBF champion, who is Anthony Joshua. Number 6, Joseph Parker, who is the WBO champion. Number 7, Bermane Stiverne. Number 8, David Haye. Number 9, Andy Ruiz. And number 10, Dillian White. So if you find that this ratings and these rankings make sense, then you can trust the Ring. If you don't, then you can't trust the Ring, okay? Let's just do 2 more or 3 more divisions. If you look at the light heavyweight division, the number one light heavyweight in the world at present is Andre Ward, because he has the WBO, IBF, WBA light heavyweight championships. Sergey Kovalev was the dude, so he's number 2, and Adonis Stevenson is number 3. Now, do you agree with that or you disagree with that? That's the question, right? At super middleweight, we're looking at James DeGale because Badou Jack has left, but they have James DeGale as number 1, Badou Jack at number 2, Gilberto Ramirez at number 3. And if you agree with that, then it means, let's look at middleweight. The lineal champion is Canelo Alvarez because he beat Miguel Cotto. Number 1 is Gennady Golovkin. He has the IBF, WBA, and WBC middleweight championships. Danny Jacobs is number 2. Billy Joe Saunders is number 3. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Okay. When we look at the junior middleweight division, very quickly, Canelo Alvarez is the number 1 junior middleweight because of experience, the kinds of opponents. Jermell Charles is number 2, the IBF champion. By the way, Canelo is the WBO champion. Eris Landila is number 3, WBA champion. Number 4 is Miguel Cotto. He was the middleweight champion, all of that, so that makes sense. And Jermell Charlo, number 5, because he's the WBC world champion. Right after him is Demetrius Andrade. Then Austin Trout, Liam Smith, Jarrett Hurd, and Michel Soro. All right, and 1 more division I'm going to do. Welterweight division. Do you agree with these rankings? Kell Brook being the number 1 welterweight in the world right now, the IBF champion. Then you have Keith Thurman, who's the WBA champion. Then Sean Porter, then Manny Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao should be ahead of Sean Porter, just based on just his legend, his legacy, and the kinds of fighters he had. Then Timothy Bradley, Amir Khan, Danny Garcia, who's the WBC world champion at the present, Errol Spence Jr., and Jesse Vargas, and Konstantin Ponomarev, who I have no idea who that dude is. So, if you agree with these rankings, then we can actually look at the Ring magazine's annual rankings and the annual ratings by year. Now, the Ring magazine's been around forever. It's been there since 1924, and basically the early boxing bodies such as the New York State Athletic Commission and the National Boxing Association, NBA, and the NYAC, also known today as the WBC and the WBA, were around almost forever. I believe the New York State Athletic Commission, that came about in 1921, 1922. We had the NBA, okay? So the Ring's been around since 1924. Now, if you can rely on the annual ratings of the Ring from 1996 to the end of Floyd Mayweather's career, 2015, we're going to go into it, and you're going to see the level of competition Floyd Mayweather faced while he was world champion, and we're going to count them, okay? So let's look at Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s career when he became world champion. Well, the fight in which he became world champion was against Genaro Hernandez, and it was for the super featherweight championship of the world. Now, where was Genaro Hernandez ranked? We'll look at the end of 1997, because that was the year before Floyd faced Genaro Hernandez, and at the end of 1997 they have the rankings for every fighter. So at the end of 1997, what was the ranking of Genaro Hernandez? Was he just any other champion? He wasn't just any other champion. He was the champion. He was the number one junior lightweight, also known as super featherweight, in the world. Okay, number 2 was Arturo Gatti. Number 3 was Young So Choi. Number 4 was Roberto Garcia, who became world champion. Number 5 was Angel Manfredi, a top contender. Number 6 was Julian Lorsi, who became a world champion. Number 7 was Tracy Harris Patterson, who was a former world champion. Number 8 was Jesus Chavez, who became a world champion. Number 9 was Tom Johnson. And number 10 was Gabriel Ruelas, who was a world champion along with his brother, the Ruelas brothers. They were devastating world champions in their time. Of course, Ruelas was beaten by Gennaro Hernandez. So was Jesus Chavez. So was Tracy Harris Patterson. So was Julian Lorsi. He didn't fight Angel Manfredi. He didn't fight Roberto Garcia. All right, he didn't fight Arturo Gatti. Okay, so Gennaro Hernandez was the man of the division when Floyd Mayweather faced him in 1998, the end of 1998, and he beat Gennaro Hernandez. What is very important for you guys to remember whenever you guys make the claim that Canelo was too green, he was too young to face Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather was the age of 21 in his 18th fight when he faced Gennaro Hernandez. Gennaro Hernandez was the age of 32. Floyd Mayweather, when he faced Canelo Alvarez, was 36 years of age. Canelo being the age of 21, I think, or 22. And Canelo had been unified super welterweight champion of the world. Floyd Mayweather Jr. was a welterweight champion at the time he faced Canelo Alvarez. On top of that, not only did Canelo have more experience than the young Floyd at the time, and people were thinking that that was a huge step up for Floyd Mayweather, but also Canelo Alvarez was a world champion when he faced Floyd Mayweather, was bigger than Floyd Mayweather, was taller than Floyd Mayweather, was more stronger and powerful than Floyd Mayweather Jr. was. So there is no argument to say that Canelo was green. Canelo was in the prime of his career as Floyd Mayweather Jr. was in the prime of his career when he faced Gennaro Hernandez. No excuses, folks. Let's move on. So he faced the number 1 super featherweight in the world, as Floyd was the number 1 welterweight in the world, and was the lineal champion at super welterweight as well, the number 1 super welterweight in the world, when Canelo Alvarez faced him. Okay? That's number 1. Angel Manfredi. And we can just simply look at it because it's the same year, 1998. And when we look at the Ring magazine, Angel Manfredi, as we already know, was the number 5 junior lightweight super featherweight in the world. So that's 2 for 2. After facing Angel Manfredi, that was it for 1998. Let's look at 1999. For 1999, we need to look at the Ring magazine's ratings the year before, the end of 1998. Okay. So, did Floyd Mayweather face any of these guys here in 1999? And the answer to that question is no. He didn't face any of them. So we can move on to the year 2000, in which he had 2 fights against Gregorio Vargas and Emmanuel Augustus. That means we have to look at the end of 1998. Was it 1999? End of 1999, sorry. My bad. So here are the names at the end of 1999. We're looking at Goyo Vargas, Derek Gainer, Acelino Freitas, Jesus Chavez, Young So Choi, Lak Vasim, Roberto Garcia, Jung Kwang Bak, and Diego Corrales. Okay? Let's see. So in the year 2000, he faced Gregorio Vargas, which is on this rating. He's the number 10th fighter, also known as Goyo Vargas. And he faced Emmanuel Augustus, who wasn't even a super featherweight. As you can see, they fought at lightweight this match. So let's just see if he was a lightweight there. And he's not. Okay? So, unlike the year 1999, he actually fought one top 10 super featherweight, who was this guy, Gregorio Vargas. He was the absolute lowest one. He was the number 10. So he had 3 out of 6 fights. 3 of his opponents were top 10 opponents in super featherweight. In the year 2001, he faced 3 opponents. He faced Diego Corrales, Carlos Hernandez, and Jesus Chavez. Let's see here. So that would be the end of 2000 were the rankings of these guys. And at the end of 2000, Diego Corrales was the number 1 super featherweight in the world. Jesus Chavez was the number 8. Carlos Hernandez was not there. So he fought 2 out of 3 of the opponents were top 10 opponents. Okay? That means 5 of 10 opponents that he faced at super featherweight were top 10 opponents. Okay? In 2002, he went up in weight and he fought Jose Luis Castillo. And he rematched him. So, what was the rankings of Jose Luis Castillo? Let's see. According to this, Jose Luis Castillo was the number 1 lightweight in the world. So, twice Floyd Mayweather at super featherweight fought number 1 super featherweights in the world, and then twice in lightweight he fought the number 1 super lightweight, the number 1 lightweight in the world. It was Jose Luis Castillo. That was in 2002. That leads us to 6. In 2003, he fought Philip Endu and Victoriano Sosa. So let's see what they were ranked like in 2003. As lightweights, they are not ranked as top 10 lightweights. However, Philip Endu was a top junior lightweight. So I'm assuming that at the end of 2002, Philip Endu went up in weight and fought Floyd Mayweather. Because Philip Endu was a contemporary of Floyd Mayweather at super featherweight as well. So he probably went up in weight in 2003 and fought some lightweight fights, maybe 1 or 2, and then he fought Floyd Mayweather. Okay, so he wasn't a ranked lightweight. But it's still worth noting that he was a ranked super featherweight. Okay, but we're not going to count him. So we're still at 6 in 2003. In 2004, he fought 1 fight and was against DeMarcus Corley. So let's see what DeMarcus Corley was ranked as a. I believe he would be what? He would be a super lightweight. Okay, so we're looking at super lightweight here, or junior welterweight as it's known, and DeMarcus Corley was a number 6 ranked junior welterweight in the world. So that leads us to 7. 7 top 10 opponents that Floyd has faced. Let's see what else we have here. So now we go to 2005. He faced Henry Russell and Arturo Gatti at super lightweight, as you clearly can see. Then he faced Shambe Mitchell at welterweight. So let's see in 2005 if any of those guys are mentioned on the listing. Okay, so at the end of 2004, what were their rankings? We see here that Arturo Gatti was definitely ranked in the top 10, along with DeMarcus Corley, and I believe that's about it. The other gentleman, Henry Brussels, was not a top 10 junior welterweight, so that leads us to 8 top 10 opponents. And then he entered welterweight in 2005, the end of 2005. So let's just see if Shambe Mitchell was a top 10 welterweight, and he wasn't. Okay. And then in 2006, he faced Zab Judah and Carlos Baldomir. So we have to look at the rankings at the end of 2005. And at the end of 2005, Zab Judah was the lineal champion. Carlos Baldomir was number 10 welterweight in the world. But strangely enough, Zab Judah went and fought Carlos Baldomir at the beginning of 2006, and Baldomir beat Zab Judah. So that at the end of 2006, Zab Judah moved down and Baldomir moved up. And then in 2006, Floyd Mayweather faced Carlos Baldomir, and he also faced Zab Judah. He beat both of them. So Carlos Baldomir became the lineal champion, and Zab Judah, I believe at the end of 2006, was, well, we'll see. We'll see that in a minute. Okay. So Floyd Mayweather was still at welterweight at that time. And you can see Carlos Baldomir was the number 2 welterweight in the world after Floyd Mayweather Jr. beat him, number 2 contender. Antonio Margarito was the number 1 welterweight in the world, at least number 1 contender to Floyd Mayweather at that time. And Zab Judah was the 4th ranked welterweight in the world because he'd been beaten by Floyd and Baldomir. Okay? So that's just for you guys to know. Now, in 2007, he faced Oscar De La Hoya and Ricky Hatton. Now, let me start with Ricky Hatton first, and then I'll talk about Oscar De La Hoya. As you can see, Oscar De La Hoya was the number 6th ranked junior middleweight, also known as super welterweight in the world. So we have an Adzab Judah and Carlos Baldomir, which would be 10. Oscar De La Hoya would be 11. And then Ricky Hatton must be added to the equation, not because he's the number 1 junior welterweight in the world, but actually Ricky Hatton in 2006 beat Louis Collazo. Okay? Now, hear me out. Louis Collazo is number 5, but Ricky Hatton wouldn't be number 5. I'll tell you why. Miguel Cotto inherited Ricky Hatton's vacated title by beating Carlos Quintana, okay, for the vacant title. And he's number 3. So where Miguel Cotto is in this ranking here, that's where Ricky Hatton would have been. So I must include Ricky Hatton as a top tier welterweight, though he vacated. So Ricky Hatton makes it number 12. Alright. Now Juan Manuel Marquez never fought at welterweight, so I can't include Juan Manuel Marquez. That would be unfair. And that was in 2009. In 2010, Shane Mosley faced Floyd Mayweather. And I'm going to give you the rankings at the end of 2009. At the end of 2009, Shane Mosley knocked out Antonio Margarito. And if you look, Antonio Margarito was the number 1 welterweight in the world. Let me just backtrack it so you guys can see. At the end of 2008, he had beaten Miguel Cotto. Okay, so he was the number 1 welterweight in the world. And Shane Mosley came and beat Antonio Margarito. So Shane Mosley was actually the number 1 welterweight in the world. Now, there's a little mistake by the ring here. They had Manny Pacquiao over Shane Mosley. Pacquiao faced the loser, which was Miguel Cotto. So Manny Pacquiao couldn't be the number 1 welterweight in the world. Shane Mosley faced Antonio Margarito, who was the winner and the number 1 welterweight in the world. Therefore, Shane Mosley was actually the number 1 welterweight in the world when he faced Floyd Mayweather. So that's something worth noting. That would bring it to number 13. And he beat Shane Mosley. And then Floyd Mayweather faced Victor Ortiz in 2011. Now, Victor Ortiz went on to beat Andre Berto in 2010. So Victor Ortiz's rankings here would be where Andre Berto is. So Victor Ortiz beat Andre Berto. Victor Ortiz, before that, was a junior welterweight. He beat Andre Berto to become the number 3 welterweight in the world when Floyd Mayweather faced him. Okay, that leads it to 14. Then we have Miguel Cotto in 2012. At the end of 2011, Miguel Cotto was the number 1 junior middleweight or super welterweight in the world, and Floyd beat him. So that brings it to 15, because we're looking at 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, Miguel Cotto is number 15, top 10 ranked. And we're talking about the very best as well, huh? In 2013, Floyd Mayweather faced Robert Guerrero, and then he faced Saul Canelo Alvarez. So let's just look at those two. Maybe at the end of 2012, we'll look at the rankings. At the end of 2012, Floyd Mayweather Jr. was the number 1 junior middleweight in the world, but he vacated at the end of 2012. So Saul Canelo Alvarez was actually the number 1 junior middleweight in the world when Floyd faced him. Alright, so that's 16. And then he also faced, before Saul Canelo Alvarez, Robert Guerrero, who had beaten Andre Berto as well. And so he was the number 3 welterweight in the world, behind Juan Manuel Marquez, who Floyd had beaten. So that leads us to 17. Now, after beating Saul Canelo Alvarez, he faced Marcos El Chino Maidana in 2014. And Marcos Maidana at the end of 2013 beat Adrian Broner. So he took Adrian Broner's spot to become the number 9th welterweight in the world, and Floyd fought him. So as a result of that, and you notice there's no Amir Khan in this listing, okay? Just so you guys realize, Marcos Maidana was a better opponent than Amir Khan because he was actually at welterweight. Anyway, Floyd Mayweather Jr. faced Marcos El Chino Maidana. That brings us to number 18. He rematched Marcos Maidana, as you can see here. Then he faced Manny Pacquiao. And Manny Pacquiao in 2015, at the end of 2014, Manny Pacquiao was the number 2 welterweight in the world, also known as the number 1 contender. Okay, which brings us to number 19. And Andre Berto, just for the sake of it, same 2015 we're looking at. He's not even mentioned in the listing here. So Andre Berto was the first time in a very long time. We're talking about back-to-back top 10 opponents that Floyd Mayweather faced. In a very long time, Andre Berto was the only opponent that was not a top 10 welterweight in the world at the time when Floyd Mayweather Jr. faced him, or top 10 anything. So, Floyd Mayweather Jr. faced 19 top 10 opponents in his respective divisions as rated by the Ring magazine. Sometimes the order of opponents is a little bit odds with what it really was, but by and large the Ring gets it right. 19 top 10 opponents, folks. Alright, so anyone telling you that Floyd Mayweather Jr., he didn't fight nobody, or he fought people past their prime, or he fought people with, who he cherry picked or whatever, it's ridiculous. If you're cherry picking those kinds of opponents, those are the top of the best opponents. And we're talking about back-to-back best opponents, as you notice, right? We're looking at from 2015 to 2006, for 9 years straight, Floyd definitely fought only top-tier opponents, okay? In fact, from 2006 all the way up to 2013, he only fought top 5 opponents in the respective divisions. And he has a number of number 1 fighters that he faced. Alvarez was number 1. Cotto was number 1. Mosley was number 1. Okay. Baldomir was number 1. Okay. So that's crazy. Okay. So when you look at that, you can't, when we talk about Floyd Mayweather's record, it's hard to beat. It's really a hard record to beat, because it's not just about 49-0. It's about quality. You're talking about from the beginning of his championship career to his present time, he faced, out of those 49 fights, 19 top tier opponents. Okay, we're not talking about just that they had former world champions but they were burnt out. No, we're talking about guys at the top of their divisions he faced. 19 of them. Okay, that is impressive. That says a lot, because that doesn't just talk about a fighter who's burnt out, so he's not in the top 10 anymore. No, these are fighters that were in the top 10. So I hear people say, oh, DeMarcus Corley was coming off a loss, Zab Judah was coming off a loss. Who cares? He was a top build dude. Okay? And most of the guys that Floyd Mayweather fought were coming off spectacular wins. You cannot say that for other fighters in the history of boxing. So, as much as Floyd Mayweather Jr. doesn't emphasize on his career and what he's actually done in his career, when you really put the magnifying glass on Floyd Mayweather's career, it's hard to beat, man. It's a hard career to beat. On that note, you guys have a great one.